course, we're getting ready here for round 11. TJ Rogers joined by Jacob Van Lunen on the left. We've got Christopher Anderson on the right. Matthew Nicolai. Christopher Anderson, the final undefeated player in this room.
Pretty cool for him. He has been kind of taking a break from Magic as of late, but here he is, decided to show up for Nationals and undefeated after 10 rounds. The only person in the room to do that.
And actually, after his last interview, we had the little bit of an opportunity to catch up with him a bit, and he was talking about how, in the times in which he's actually taken a bit of a break from Magic and then come back, historically, he's done really well in those situations. He feels like it's an opportunity for him to kind of cut out all of this, getting into his own head and just get straight down to the fundamentals of the game and play some good Magic.
Yeah.
Tolarian Scholar joining the Aether Glider, and it's a Pegasus Courser on the battlefield for Matthew Nicolai.
Yeah, the Pegasus Courser matching up really nicely against that Aether Glider on Christopher's side of the table. Two creatures that don't have 3 power, can't really attack into the Pegasus Courser too profitably. Christopher, doesn't want to send that glider because it could just get eaten.
And we're seeing these aggressive strategies at work. It's going to be Davenant Trapper and Dauntless Bodyguard coming down to the battlefield. That Bodyguard protecting the Courser, and the Davenant Trapper are going to be able to, I think Matthew Nicolai has got at least the Jousting Lance. A couple other historic permanents could really start making combat difficult for Christopher Anderson if he's trying to kind of, shell up and wall up and protect himself.
Yeah, and a lot of the time people rely on one good blocker. And the Trapper is really good in aggressive decks at just taking out that one defensive piece that your opponent has on the battlefield so that you can get in for some pretty big swings. Here, Skizik, a powerful aggressive card, but Christopher doesn't want to just trade that for the Trapper, so it's just going to stay back on defense here.
Another Pegasus Courser coming down to the battlefield. This is a pretty valuable card as far as really making combat difficult for your opponents. Its ability to jump another creature. It's a 1/3. It's got flying, but when it attacks, you get to give another of your attacking creatures flying. Also another Bodyguard coming down, protecting the Trapper, actually, not going for this other Pegasus Courser.
Yeah, now this puts Matthew into a pretty good position. This Trapper is a great blocker when it's being bodyguarded here. It means that Christopher really doesn't have any good attacks still. Meanwhile, Matthew can freely start attacking in the air. That glider cannot block.
Mm-hmm. But it also can't attack. There's that Pegasus Courser right in its way. It's the Tempest Djinn. This has been among the more powerful cards for Christopher Anderson. Every time it comes down, it's putting on a good show. It's a 4/4 for 3 at its face value with flying.
Yeah, just a great card for its cost. This was Christopher's first pick out of the second pack, I believe, and just one of the very best cards in his deck. He has, 3 really powerful cards: an Icy Manipulator, Tempest Djinn, and Naru Meha. And when he's able to draw those cards and deploy them, it's going to, give him a pretty nice edge.
There's the Jousting Lance. The Davenant Trapper is going to be able to tap down a creature. Did you see in the last round when he got to use Naru Meha alongside a Divination to draw 4 cards?
That's about the most exciting thing I've heard all weekend.
So the Tempest Djinn is going to be tapped by this Jousting Lance. The Davenant Trapper able to really make combat difficult, at least for one more turn. Also does have the mana to equip if Matthew decides to.
Yeah, now Matthew, still no black mana here for him. That Tempest Djinn can be a little bit scary.
Worked for Brown Dude in the last round.
Yeah.
Mono white is apparently the strategy in the game 1.
Yeah, your opponent has no idea what your second color is.
Keep an eye. It is an interesting decision anytime that you have these equipment about how, when you suit it up onto one creature or another, how this can affect combat, how this can, you're not going to have the ability to re-equip this heading it back into your own turn, and how you want to line up these blocks. It's really something that can change the way that this combat is going to look for your turn.
Yeah, so Matthew making an attack here that, Christopher can't really interact with. One thing that's also interesting here is that I believe Christopher left open Syncopate, but because Matthew played Jousting Lance and then equipped it, Christopher didn't have an opportunity to use that Syncopate, and he went with 3 unused mana that turn. Matthew getting in for a lot of damage here, and Christopher really needs to lean on this Tempest Djinn if he wants to be able to defend in the air.
Yeah, a massive swing for 8 because that Aether Glider is unable to block, and the Tempest Djinn was tapped down by that Davenant Trapper. It's a short sword coming down for the turn. It's going to go ahead, suit up on this Skizik, which is going to make it large enough to not trade with the Davenant Trapper. The other flyer, it's not blocking, and it now doesn't have a blocker. It's going to get in a chip shot.
Yeah, now, again, Christopher recognizes his deck's role in a game and knows that he needs to also be aggressive. He can't just sit around. If he wants to play a blocking game, that Trapper will eventually beat him. So he understands that while he needs to be defensive, he also needs to be aggressive here.
We do finally get that swamp out on the battlefield, so we are going to have that capability to start casting really the other half of the deck. There's a Deathbloom Thallid in hand, and ooh, Vicious Offering here. This is going to kick the Dauntless Bodyguard. Tempest Djinn looks like it is going to be on the way out. And the Syncopate, so you did spot this one earlier. That's in hand. It's getting cast now.
Yeah, but it's for 4, and Matthew has 4 untapped lands.
Go for it. All right, that's going to take it down, Chris. You had the one shot. You might as well take it.
Yeah. You never know. Maybe he doesn't pay.
We've seen it before. I've seen some of those plays. You throw down the counterspell confidently enough, maybe they think you've got it. You know, maybe Matthew Nikolai had a follow-up spell that also won him the game. But in this case, Vicious Offering is going to take down the game. The Tempest Djinn goes away, and that's the end of it. But game 2 coming on in. This could be where Christopher Anderson, maybe he's fallen a bit behind. This could be, he's the last standing undefeated player.
Yeah, and it does look like his deck is a bit outclassed here. Matthew's deck just looks incredible. One of the problems with playing, small aggressive creatures in this format is that they quickly get outclassed on the ground, and then everything is gummed up. Matthew is able to overcome that by having multiple copies of Pegasus Courser in his deck, and just efficient removal spells, cheap creatures, and a great curve. So if you're looking to draft an aggro deck in Dominaria Limited, look no further than Matthew's strategy here, because it looks like Matthew's deck is real nice.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. How do the tiebreakers get affected once, either if you have a single undefeated player or really just no undefeated players, what kind of effect can that have on the tiebreakers? Usually at these larger tournaments, you expect to see a couple more of them, and there's still 2 rounds left.
So if we're talking about tiebreakers, usually your tiebreakers will be better depending on how well you start off the tournament. So if somebody starts off with an early loss, it means their tiebreakers will be significantly worse than somebody who started off on a really nice win streak. As a result, somebody like Christopher Anderson, if he does end up X2 at the end of the day here, he's looking very good for top 8. Whereas if somebody who had lost in, let's say, round 2 and 4 then wins out, things can be a little more difficult for them.
Okay. So as they're heading into the second game, we are going to see Matthew Nikolai be on the draw with his aggressive strategy. That does mean that Christopher Anderson might be able to really have the opportunity to get out some of those lands, hold up some of that removal, get out some of his larger creatures early on. That's going to give him a little bit of an opportunity. We saw that, with this blue-red strategy, Syncopate is a card that can be significantly better when you're actually on the play, having access also to that Tempest Djinn coming down sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and Tempest Djinn, if it comes down early, you kind of got lucky because you needed to have 3 islands for that to happen. But Christopher, his deck is kind of suited to get underneath more powerful decks and then to counter their big finish with one of his Syncopates, and that's his plan. So here he's facing off against a deck that's playing a lot of cards that are at a mean casting cost cheaper than his, and I don't think that's where his deck wants to be in terms of matchup.
So he'll have to pretty much use these cards to whatever angle that he can to try and outclass them, because his cards are more expensive, they're a bit slower, but he needs to somehow turn them into a favorable situation, maybe try and make a couple of favorable trades, though that's going to be difficult against those lower costs.
Yeah, and I mean, he's built his deck so that it really only plays one way. It's an aggressive tempo strategy, and when you play against somebody who just can kind of play that same game, if they want to, a little bit better, it can just be so rough. And maybe Christopher's going to his sideboard. He's seeing if he has, extra copies of Tolarian Scholar maybe in his board, things like that. Those would be cards that he might want to bring in. I'm looking at his sideboard here, and he's got a few Hill Giants and a Homerite Explorer. He may actually want to bring in 1 or 2 of those simply because of the number of 2-power creatures on the other side of the table. Then again, it's hard to know if he'll ever even be able to block because the opponent has multiple copies of Pegasus Courser, and Christopher only has 1 removal spell in his deck, as far as I know.
Yeah, the flying strategy, as far as Matthew Nikolai's deck went, in that first game, almost all of his attacks were in the air. Multiple Pegasus Coursers bouncing, the Dauntless Bodyguards bouncing, really anything that came down to the battlefield. It was so difficult for Christopher Anderson to put up any sort of defense that Easter Glider was incredibly ineffective because it wasn't really able to attack. It wasn't really able to block. I'll be curious to see if we do see that card at all in the later games because of the amount of flying.
Yeah, Aether Glider just seems awful against Matthew. Matthew has at least 2 different 1/3s for 3 mana in the air, which obviously match up very well.
Probably my favorite description that I ever heard of that card was that it's a 3-mana enchantment that deals 2 damage every turn until it doesn't.
Yeah, I like that.
Short Sword out on the battlefield for Christopher Anderson. Matthew Nikolai just with a Swamp and a Plains. Does have a Calico Skin Witch in hand and choosing not to play it. Maybe looking to do something that we've seen pretty frequently, which is that Calico Skin Witch come in and eliminate whatever cards are remaining in the hand.
Yeah, now...
Look at this. Keldon Overseer on 3 mana. It's a hasty 3-1 coming down to the battlefield. Just getting it shot in. Normally it does have a kicker for 4. It can cost 7. You'll often see that as sort of a final play of the game to steal one of the creatures and get in a big attack. And it's going to be the Deathbloom Thallid that follows it up.
Yeah, now Keldon Overseer, again, a card that you're not necessarily thrilled to be playing with in your main deck, but this is a card that if you play a ton of the format, you might want to be sideboarding it in when you play against cards like Thorn Elemental. It can just end games out of nowhere.
Yep, I did hear a couple of players, they were basically said, you know, I never want this card in my deck, but I know I'm going to lose to it at least once every other league.
Yeah, now, and so one of the major reasons that Matthew didn't play the Skin Witch on turn 2, that's something we had talked about, but we didn't fully get to flesh out, is because Christopher played that Short Sword on his first turn of the game, and that means that there are very few creatures that Christopher could play where the Skin Witch would actually be able to favorably block. So Matthew wants to instead wait until he has access to 6 mana and maybe get the last 2 cards out of Christopher's hand.
Narumeha coming down to the battlefield. It does have Flash when it enters. Copy target engine or sorcery you control. None this time. We did get to that divination earlier, and it's followed up with a Fiery Intervention on the Aven Sentry. This 3-3 is now going to get in some swings. Christopher's tempo game plan seems to be coming together in this match.
Yeah, this is exactly what Chris wants to be doing. He has one of his best cards in the battlefield. He has an equipment that can turn it into a 4-4. It's just not a bad spot for him to be in.
Mesa Unicorn and a Pegasus Courser joining the battlefield. That's a 1-3 and a 2-2 with lifelink. That does mean that in the air it's going to be 3-2 of it with lifelink. Really a whole variety of options. In the meantime, it's a 4-4 that's going to get in aggressively. Only 3 power that can block.
Yeah, being able to put that lifelinker into the air is really, really nice for Matthew.
Ooh, and it's going to be a Gitu Journey Mage that actually follows it up. Just another little chip shot that's going to knock Matthew down another couple of points to 8. A little bit of a dangerous territory and a 3-2 on the battlefield. That's actually going to become a 4-3 heading into Matthew's turn because of that short sword.
Yeah, and Christopher has already played that Fiery Intervention. That's the only removal spell in his deck, so he may not be able to kill another creature for the remainder of the game unless he's able to draw his Gitu Chronicler and kick it.
So now the name of the game for Christopher Anderson is take whatever advantage he has created at this point and ride it to the end.
I believe so. With Matthew having access to 6 mana here, Calico Skin Witch could put Christopher on 0 cards also, and I don't think that's a good sign.
That's the case, and there's that Gitu Chronicler that's going to go to the graveyard there. Was sitting in hand maybe for a really nice turn next with another land. Not going to happen. We do see Matthew gain 2 of that life back with the Mesa Unicorn, and now it's the Calico Skin Witch and a Saproling facing off against a 3-2 and a 4-4 Narumeha. How do you feel about equipping that short sword to the Narumeha as opposed to leaving it on the Gitu Journey Mage?
Well, the thing is, the Gitu Journey Mage is still going to be attacking for 4 here, so it splits up your damage evenly.
Okay.
So if you don't have anything else to do with the mana, that's fine. I think that's just the major reason, though.
That is true, because that Narumeha, in addition to being able to copy that spell, does have a pretty nice effect on the other wizards that you control.
Yeah. So now, instead of Matthew being able to chump block 5 damage, he just has to chump block 4 if the attack for 8.
Yep. So that Gitu Journey Mage, normally a 3-2, could have been walking into a double block there, but as a 4-3, in this case, it does mean that there's a bit more damage presented. We are going to knock Matthew down to 6, which, you know, there is that 2 life gain on the opposing side of the battlefield, but really it's just trying to keep applying whatever pressure is available. And living out the top of the deck, ooh, that is not good news for Christopher Anderson. We are going to lose the Narumeha to an Eviscerate, and now it is a Gitu Journey Mage back to being a 3-2, capable of wielding a sword, a Divination coming down for Christopher Anderson.
Yeah, now Matthew, has to be feeling pretty good about his chances. He's up against a 3-2. He has 2 power of lifelink that's attacking in the air. He's attacking for more damage. The fact that Christopher did not equip that short sword probably will lead Matthew to believe that, there's why.
So we do see that Easter Glider come back in the second game. It's able to swing in the air if Matthew's getting aggressive with this Pegasus Courser. It's not going to be too big of a liability. The fact that it, is just a 2-1, so it's going to get its chip shot in, but this is still a pretty substantial bit of damage. It's 4 damage coming on the backswing. Plenty of mana up, but Matthew is at 5. Will be going to 7 off of the lifelink. So we've got an interesting little race here of, Christopher Anderson is able to present 5 damage, but it's really 3 because of the Mesa Unicorn. And that's actually about to get cut down even more so because we see this the Sergeant at arms bringing in 2 of these 1/1s as well as being a 2/3 itself. That Key 2 Journey Mage is functionally grounded.
Yeah, and Matthew's done a good job of gumming up the ground at this point. He's also presenting a pretty nice attacking force at this point.
Yep. Now it's pretty much just 1 damage a turn. The Aether Glider wearing a short sword attacks in for 3. It knocks Matthew down to 4. 1 step at a time trying to fight out against this Mesa Unicorn. And like you said, removal is not an option. Christopher is just trying to keep trying to make that advantage into whatever he possibly can. It's going to be the Mesa Unicorn attacking on in. Matthew back up to 6. Stronghold Confessor comes down. This is beginning to be a very difficult position for Christopher Anderson.
Yeah, the lifelink on that Mesa Unicorn has really bought Matthew the time that he needed to establish control of this game. Christopher has no more access to removal. No
more lands in that hand, no run amok that could have maybe getting that final 3 points. That is just going to be Matthew Nikolai in 2, unseating the final undefeated player in this tournament.
And Matthew's deck just looked incredible at every phase of the game. He played beautifully too. He made sure that his opponent was tapped out when he went for the kicked Calico Skinwitch. His opponent had to discard his last 2 cards. Then Chris had discarded the Chronicler, had the Fiery Intervention in his graveyard, no longer had any removal, and was just up against too much of a force from Matthew.
And of course, that's not the end. We're going to have more Magic coming this way. All right, and actually, I'm being told we have actually got an interview lined up, so we're going to get the opportunity to really talk to one of these players, get a little bit of an insight about what they thought going into that draft. I'm pretty excited to see, what you're able to talk to as far as how this deck construction was. That's going to be a really cool thing because this deck looked beautiful, and like you said, the gameplay was exceptional. It was absolutely exceptional. So we are going to end up having more matches in the future, but in the short term, it's going to be an interview coming our way, and really, I'm excited because we're watching these players go into maybe one of their final opportunities to be on camera with this format. There's only a couple of opportunities left to be on camera playing this Dominaria draft.
Yeah, and I mean, what a beautiful draft format it's been, right? I mean, I know all of you at home probably feel the same way, but this is just a format that has been a joy for everyone that's had an opportunity to play with it. I have been reminded why I fell in love with Magic to begin with. I remember going to my first draft ever. It was like Triple Urza Saga at a store in Cedar Grove, New Jersey. And, there were exactly 8 people. They were so excited that I showed up, and I just had found it, on the internet. I think I yellow paged to find a store and was calling different comic stores to see if they had Magic tournaments.
The physical?
Physical yellow pages. This was a long time ago.
I remember using those to get up to the dinner table if I was too short to actually be up at it.
This set, there's so much nostalgia even beyond just the gameplay. When you cast a card like Sarah Angel or you open it, it reminds you of playing with that card 20 plus years ago. When you cast a Thorn Elemental, that's a card that I remember being excited about when I first saw it as a kid. Good luck blocking this thing. And I think I had a binder that had Thorn Elemental, the picture of the art on there. And Dominaria it reminds you of why you're so passionate to be a Magic player.
All right, well, we've got the interview lined up, so let's head on down and see what we can do. Matthew Nikolai, how's it going? TJ Rogers here with Jacob Van Lunen. Congratulations on that fantastic draft. How did you feel unseating the last undefeated player?
It felt pretty good. It was a rent bench from yesterday. It was fine.
And of course, your deck looked absolutely incredible when you were going into that draft as the pieces were coming together. Did you feel pretty confident either at the beginning or I'm sure that you did by the end of the draft, but did that draft go pretty smoothly or did it take a little bit to put it together?
It was a little rough. My main win conditions was just 3 Pegasus Courser, and I had like 4 pieces of removal, so I was kind of hoping my opponent couldn't really interact with that, and most of them didn't, so I 3-0'd the bod.
Now, something that I found pretty interesting about your deck is normally I don't like drafting aggressive decks in this format because smaller creatures get outclassed on the ground so quickly, you get these really gummed up boards, but the fact that you had these multiple Pegasus Coursers really allowed you to kind of just fight through that ground mess that often happens. How high are you taking Pegasus Coursers when you end up with one of these more aggressive white decks?
In that draft, it was pretty high. I knew that I had some not so great 2-mana 2/2s, and I needed a way to get them through, so I was taking, I think the earliest I took one was like I first picked one pack 3, so pretty highly.
Man, it was an incredible thing. Like you said, I have not had the opportunity to see these aggressive decks and taking down ones that really felt like they had that higher power level, but using that removal really nicely. Also just trying to turn these small creatures into a big damage. Even the Dauntless Bodyguards really looked impressive on that battlefield, which is something that I haven't had a big opportunity to see myself.
Yeah, now also, a question I have is from Game 2 of that last match.
Yes.
On your second turn, you're facing off against what looked like an attempted to be very aggressive red-blue deck, and you have the Calico Skin Witch. You choose not to cast it in the face of the short sword. Is that just because any creature he plays will outclass the 3 toughness with the short sword, or is there more nuance there?
No, that's mostly it. Also, that card is much, much better on 6. Like, that probably won me the game discarding 2 spells. It was, Skizik and some kill spell or something?
Yeah, it was like a Get-To Chronicler when you had an intervention in the yard, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty important to winning that last game.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And of course, I think that was about the only removal spell going into it. But you've built a pretty good bit of momentum going into the standard portion. Do you feel pretty confident now you are X1? Feeling pretty good heading into the standard section?
I mean, I went 5-0 in standard, 5-0 with the bye in standard yesterday, so hopefully it continues. I'm not sure what I need to top 8, but I'm hoping to win the last 2.
All right. So, what deck are you playing in standard?
Blue-black mid-range.
Ooh, very nice.
Yep.
All right, well, best of luck to you. Good luck as you head into the standard section. We'll be keeping an eye on how you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Shout out to Team BC.
Wow. I mean, it's so cool to see the deck that, we've talked a little bit about the strategies that are more common, less common, and seeing the aggressive deck be the one that just nails that pod, 3-0s it.
Yeah, and I really liked that he first picked a Pegasus Courser, because that was one of those things where when I have tried to draft these more aggressive decks, I find myself just getting all my creatures outclassed. Somebody plays Mammoth Spider, somebody plays, just any random 2/3, and suddenly I'm not doing anything. But he understood that that's a problem in this format, and he was willing to circumvent that by first picking a card like Pegasus Courser, jumping those little 2/2s into the air, and as a result, he 3-0'd a pod, and he's now probably either in first or second place in the standings.
Absolutely. But of course, that's not the only story here in Round 11. We're going to have more Magic coming your way right after this. Welcome back to round 11 here at the U.S. Nationals. TJ Rogers joined by Jacob Van Lunen, and we are going to be getting ready with some more time walk matches, a little bit more Magic to see. We're going to be starting off with Owen Turnwald up against Joe Bernal. Looks like it's going to be turn one Llanowar Elves from Joe Bernal up against Owen Turnwald, the third-ranked player in the world.
Yeah, turn one Llanowar Elves, exactly the turn you want that card.
And look at this. There is another Llanowar Elves in hand, as well as this Plains. That is an enormous amount of acceleration. Owen's going to be heading into his second turn, and then he's going to pass it back to Joe, who's heading into his fifth.
Yeah. Owen trying to play the same game a little bit.
The Elfheim Druid is going to be coming on down for Owen. It's able to tap for 2 mana for kicker spells, otherwise also able to do a functional Llanowar Elf impression, tapping for that singular green. There's a Plains in hand and a Forest, 2 of them, and it looks like we are just going to be getting aggressive. The Elfheim Druid, it's not a great blocker, it's an 0-2, and Owen respecting the tricks.
Yeah, doesn't want to lose that Elfheim Druid, perhaps needs that mana, wants to use it on this turn, has, a 4-mana play.
Ooh, and it's going to be an Untamed Kavu that is going to come down to the battlefield.
And that's a 5-mana play. The kicker clause on the Druid there coming into play.
Yep, adds green for spells with kicker, which means that now it's a 5-mana 5/5 with Vigilance and Trample. It's going to be followed up by a Daring Excavator. We really haven't had an opportunity to see Joe Bernal really capitalize on that massive mana advantage that he was able to accrue early on. Turn 3, he just attacked with the 2 Llanowar Elves, and in turn 4 makes a 4-mana play.
Yeah, a lot of the time, one of the drawbacks to playing cards like Llanowar Elves is that, either you draw the acceleration half or you draw the fatty half, and if you don't have both, you're quite a bit rougher.
Owen Turnwald matching him with his own Llanowar Elves. These 2 players were apparently the ones. I doubt that any Llanowar Elves made it past these 2 players.
I also doubt that.
The Untamed Kavu and the Thallid Omnivore is going to be one of the bigger creatures on the board. That Kavu, a phenomenal attacker here, as well as a blocker, really making things difficult for Joe Bernal. Now, attacking on in can be a bit dangerous because Joe could go for really, a triple block, but that's even itself a pretty dangerous way to go about it.
Yeah, oh, wow, look at this.
Caligo Skin Witch using that Elfheim Druid for the 2 mana once more. The kicker spell's really taken advantage here by Owen. Joe's going to have to discard 2 cards. He's going to be losing half of the hand that he currently has available to him, and it's going to be a Lingering Phantom that hits the bin, as well as, I think that is a Soul Salvage?
I think it's a Dark Bargain.
Oh, Dark Bargain. Okay, good eyes. And it's going to be the Thallid Omnivore attacking on in alongside this Untamed Kavu. Really, things are looking difficult for Joe Bernal in the first game.
Yeah, and Joe Bernal thinking about throwing away all 3 of his creatures to deal with this Kavu.
And that's going to be the case. There is 1 mana remaining, but I doubt that's going to be really a big situation. Just stacking the blocks like so, and that's going to be a 3-for-1 with the Untamed Kavu with no tricks, and another Llanowar Elf coming down to the battlefield. And Joe Bernal is just going to pick him up. That was enough for him. It's Owen Turnwald taking game 1. Joe Bernal following up with another turn 1 Llanowar Elves. And it's going to be Owen following up with his own. These 2 players, they've got a game plan. They're going to make it happen.
Yeah, they are playing a very fast game here.
And it's a Skittering Surveyor. This is going to help hit the land drops, finding just a swamp. No 3rd color available.
Yeah, it means he probably has the Plains already in hand. Joe is playing a 3-color deck, and I believe black is his main color here, and in game 1, just unable to draw the black mana. Most of his cards aren't black, but most of his powerful cards are black, so all of his top-end cards are cards that require swamps.
I spotted an Ariel in Joe's hand as well, so with having that Plains in hand, he's going to be looking at a pretty powerful play next turn too. Then we're Elves and a Forest joined by a Swamp, and just a pass back from Owen Turnwald back to Joe Bernal. Looking much better in the second game. Draws also a Vicious Offering.
Yeah, would have loved to have had the Vicious Offering on the turn prior so that he could have used it to deal with that Llanowar Elves there.
There comes down the basic Plains, and Joe Bernal, he's just going to get it in for 1. It's the Skittering Surveyor, not using this Llanowar Elves just yet. And there it is, Ariel. It's going to be a 4/4 with Vigilance. This is a card that can absolutely take over the board. In addition to that Vigilance, you can start creating some knights on the battlefield, and can even use another ability to really give, start taking out creatures. It gives them -1/-1 for each knight that you control.
Yeah, this is just an incredible card. It means that Joe really doesn't need to commit any more resources to just taking over the board. He can just start activating this card and find himself in a really good position.
And it looks like it. Ooh. All right, so we are going to go ahead and fight this card. It doesn't even need to tap to attack. This is now a swing for 5 because you actually get a +1/+1 counter when the creature is legendary, and Skittering Surveyor going to attack on in with that team. That's a swing in for 6. Owen finds himself down to 13. 5 mana, Yargle.
And Yargle, it is big enough to fight with the Ariel on the other side of the table, but that Ariel's going to keep on making knights, and in as little as 1 turn cycle, Owen's going to find himself in a situation where Ariel can just, shoot that Yargle down.
Yeah, and also having access to this Vicious Offering in Joe Bernal's hand, he does potentially have the opportunity to really use that, maybe sacrifice one of these creatures to just eliminate that 6/3 from the battlefield, or that 9/3 from the battlefield entirely. And that's going to be the case, getting rid of the Skittering Surveyor. We did see that he has access to the Daring Archaeologist in the last game, which means that, in the later part of this game, he might have the opportunity to buy back that Skittering Surveyor and use it once more.
Absolutely. So here, Joe, with a somewhat interesting decision, he could either make a knight or he could kill the Llanowar Elves on the other side of the table after his combat step. If he thinks this game is going to end in the next couple of turns, I think that dealing with the Llanowar Elves post-combat is probably the right play. But if he thinks that there's a chance it could go on longer, then he probably wants to just be flooding the board with as many knights as possible.
And we do see a swing in for 8, so it's a pretty substantial place. He's just going to eliminate that Llanowar Elves, try and get rid of really the blockers and that mana, as opposed to creating another attacker. So now Owen needs to work with whatever resources he has, which is 5 lands, and it's going to be an Untamed Kavu trying to hold off this pretty fantastic board state that Joe Bernal has given himself the position to be in. Even if he were to attack all out with no other plays, he's getting in for 3, getting rid of the Untamed Kavu, and probably leaving behind a knight as well.
Yeah, so, Joe, even just on board, way ahead, will get Owen down to a very low life total. But I imagine Joe will want to just keep on powering out more knights if he doesn't have a way to win the game, basically, this turn.
And looks like that's going to be the case. 2 of these Vigilance creatures, we're going to throw the Untamed Kavu in front of this. It's going to deal a little bit of damage, and choosing not to activate it, actually. We've got other plays that we want to make. Ooh, and it's the Windgrace Acolyte coming down. This is the flying 3/2. It's going to gain a little bit of life, do a bit of milling. Slimefoot the Stowaway hitting the graveyard as well. And now Owen Turnwald needs something fantastic to contend with this board, and that's not going to be the case. Game 3 coming up. Owen gets to be on the play. This is going to be the final game of their match.
Yeah, now this is the first turn we've seen in a while where there's no Llanowar Elves. Both players just with a swamp.
Going to be followed up by a forest here, and all right, Sapling Migration is just going to put in 2 of these saplings, starting to develop a little bit of a board. They're going to be able to swing in pretty nicely. They also do double up eventually as ways to come off the board defensively.
Yeah, Sapling Migration, combos very nicely with things like Spore Crown Thallid, with Thallid Omnivore, with Thallid Soothsayer, Slimefoot. There are a lot of synergies that you can create in this format with a card like that.
So Yavimaya Sapherd joining the battlefield, now going to be putting in another one of those Saplings, and in the meantime, it's just going to be a Skittering Surveyor, though being a 1/2 is actually going to be pretty relevant on this board.
Yeah, 1/2 is a great size to face off against 3 1/1s on Owen's side of the table.
On Owen's side, it's just going to be an adventurous impulse to kick things off. He's going to take a look at the top 3. He gets to put a creature or a land into his hand, taking a Thallid Omnivore. That's going to be a powerful card alongside these Saplings, able to gain a little bit of life, also get a massive power increase. +2/+2 can really dominate a board. Ooh, and it's Fungal Infection. We are going to take down that Skittering Surveyor, turn it into a 0/1, which means that we don't even lose the Sapling. We create another one. Really, the synergies of Owen's deck are starting to show in this final game.
Yeah, absolutely. Skittering Surveyor, though, Joe still pretty happy that he had that card. He got a 1/2 out of the deal that Owen had to use some mana to deal with. He also got to fix his mana a bit.
Slimefoot the Stowaway coming down to the battlefield, having to face off against the very thing that he tries to create.
And why have they betrayed me?
So a variety of saplings out alongside that. Yavimaya Sapherd staring down Slimefoot the Stowaway, which if Joe has it his way, he's going to be starting to really try and develop a pretty similar board, but because of Slimefoot's triggered ability that would start benefiting Joe, but in the short term, Owen still looking pretty good in this position. Needs to come up with a way to really attack into this one, though. He had the fungal infection to really make that attack into the Skittering Surveyor look fantastic. Attacks this time are going to be a little bit less desirable.
Yeah, so Owen, no good attacks into the Slimefoot. Looks like he doesn't have a removal spell for that. Now that he has the Salad Omnivore on the table, that can, start attacking just because of threat of activation.
Mm-hmm.
But Slimefoot does a pretty good job of buying Joe some time to play out his more powerful spells.
And it looks like Owen actually just wants to go for the all-out attack, blocking the Yavimaya Saphert. It's going to be a 4 damage swing that comes on in, and Joe needs to decide a little bit. When you have one of these powerful mana sinks on the board, there's this interesting decision about using the cards in your hand as opposed to really the trick that you have on board. Eviscerate is going to take down the Thallid Omnivore, and now it is 4 Saplings against a Slimefoot.
Yeah, and I think Owen was really leaning quite hard on that Thallid Omnivore, perhaps setting up for one big attack that could finish the game with that card. And now that Joe had the Eviscerate in this spot, it makes things a lot more difficult for Owen.
Looks like we've got a 6-mana play. It is going to be Grunn the Lonely King. Coming down as a 5/5, but when it attacks alone, it's going to become a 10/10.
I've seen some very, very large Grunns in my day already.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you seen any larger than a 2020?
I have, yeah.
I just dream of putting something like a Forebear's Blade on that. Vicious Offering combining with the Slimefoot, making a Sapling, and then we're going to sacrifice that. Interesting little addition, by the way, is that because of Slimefoot the Stowaway, in addition to removing that Grunn, he actually gains a life, and Owen is going to lose a life because that is a Sapling dying, and Slimefoot says that whenever one of those that you control dies, your opponent it deals 1 damage to your opponent, you gain a life.
Yeah, that draining ability on Slimefoot is capable of buying players lots and lots of time.
And Owen is just in a position of leaving these 4 saplings on the battlefield, can't attack in, just has to pass the turn back.
Yeah, Joe's got to be feeling very good about his chances here, untapping with the Slimefoot in play, plenty of gas in his hand. Looks like Owen is starting to run out of steam.
Looks like we've got a 4-mana play here. Is this going to be Ariel joining the battlefield once more? We do also have access to another one of these. A little bit of a trick shot there, and it's going to be a Skittering Surveyor coming down to the battlefield. This is actually going to be the 8th land as well, which can be a huge thing when you have this 4-mana activated ability on the battlefield as well as cards in hand.
Yeah, and that's the thing is Joe's been able to hit land drops without really, sacrificing him being able to advance his board state thanks to these Skittering Surveyors. Skittering Surveyor are usually just a chump blocking body, but because Owen's aggression is, very Sapling-centric, the 1/2 body does a pretty good job of being defensive in the earlier stage of the game. And, it forced Owen to use the fungal infection earlier, and it also fixed Joe's mana while ensuring that he was hitting all of his land drops to this stage of the game.
It's a little bit of an interesting thing about when the Ariel is going to be starting to attack. It does have Vigilance, which can be so good offensively and defensively, but with 4 of these Saplings on the opposing side. But Joe's also got a couple of activated abilities on the board, including the Ariel, that might be able to affect the combat a bit.
Yeah, I think Joe, despite being so far ahead, there's not really much of a way that he could imagine Owen catching up in the near future. So he may just want to pass the turn here, make a Sapling, make a Knight, and then kind of just grind his way to victory.
Looks like we might also be taking a look at this Windgrace Acolyte, maybe considering getting just something with 3 power up in the air, and it means that if you've got the entire ground situation covered with this Slimefoot the Stowaway, with this Skittering Surveyor, with this Ariel, then you just let the Windgrace Acolyte do the rest of the work. But it looks like Joe is going to, I don't know, it's an interesting decision that he's in the position of. I think he might just end up passing turn, and that's going to be the case.
And I like that play.
Holding up, using the Ariel, using the Slimefoot, using the onboard cards.
Yeah.
Adventurous Impulse is going to get the Calico Skin Witch for Owen here. He does have the mana to activate it, and it would take out quite a decent chunk of what Joe has got going on in hand.
Yeah, Joe has, we saw the Ancient Animus, we saw the Windgrace Acolyte.
And actually that Windgrace Acolyte is going to go to the graveyard alongside a Plains. We're going to make a Sapling here, and we are also going to make a Knight. So a 2/2 Vigilance joining the battlefield, a 1/1 Sapling joining the battlefield, and that one alone is actually going to be very difficult because that life drain ability. And is that a third Skittering Surveyor?
It is.
Wow.
So, yeah, Joe Bernal looks like he's about to go undefeated in this draft pod, and it looks like he was valuing Skittering Surveyor very high. I like his style.
That card's been nothing but incredible for me.
Same. In a format with not enough fixing, Skittering Surveyor's value has gone way, way up.
Plus, it has all those historic synergies as well, being an artifact. All right, so Owen's got to put something together. We've got 4 mana tap in here. It's going to be a Thallid Omnivore, so maybe trying to put something together here. He does have quite a bit of ammunition. He's going to gain quite a bit of life if he wants to, and he can make combat a bit tricky if he chooses to because of that threat of activation. And it's going to be just like last turn, but this turn. Oh no, this time we're actually going to use the removal portion of this one, and we are going to take down the Calico Skinwitch.
Yeah, so it seems like Owen really, if he wants a chance to win this game, he's going to have to come up with some strange way to give this Omnivore trample and then sacrifice tons and tons of things to it. I think that is Owen's best chance at victory.
Final parting here for Joe Bernal. This is the 5-mana card that allows him to go through his library, put 1 in the graveyard, 1 in his hand. We did see a couple of options that he actually has in the deck to really capitalize on that. Nature Spiral in option. He also, I do believe, has Daring Archaeologist. So this card does actually go up in value because that graveyard does not necessarily mean that it's gone. Even this, the Lingering Phantom, whenever you cast a historic spell, you can pay, I think, just a single black mana. It goes back to your hand from that graveyard.
Yeah, and that means that Joe has set himself up really nicely to have an even more powerful endgame than he's already established at this part.
Slimefoot and Ariel was not enough for Joe. Back to Owen's turn.
Yeah, he also added a Blessed Light to his hand. So even if Owen is able to find, some type of an answer, still in a very rough position.
Just going to throw a Sapling down here, and this is going to end up draining Owen's life a little bit. Usually when you attack, you expect that the opponent is going to lose a little bit of life. In this case, Joe gained some life, and Owen was the one to actually fall a bit farther back down.
Yeah, that Slimefoot trigger can be a nightmare to play against if your deck intends on racing its way to victory.
Untamed Kavu coming down. This is the 5/5 Vigilance Trample. He was able to make really good use of it early on in this match, and then it's been struggling a little bit, really comparing itself to the Ariel. It's a good card. It just doesn't line up well against this board, though the Trample is a little bit nice against these Saplings.
Yeah, the Trample is a good ability here, but Joe is just pulled so far ahead.
Yeah. And just going to kick the turn back. Joe really playing a patient game plan here. Keep accruing these really small advantages. Use these activated abilities. Save this removal in hand. I think, is this just Joe deciding that he can't lose as things are going, so you might as well just make your advantage overwhelming as opposed to trying to really use the small advantage?
Well, in many ways, yes. I mean, Joe doesn't really have any favorable attacks here. And at the same time, he's got himself in a position where he can kind of just grind his way to victory because of how powerful his cards are.
Mm-hmm. Llanowar Elves coming down for Owen alongside that Untamed Kavu, and we are just going to eliminate it. Giving it -X with that Ariel Windgrace, and oh my goodness, is that a Forebear's Blade?
Is it? That would be very exciting for me.
Oh no, okay, that is the Black Blade Reforged.
Yeah.
I mean, still, +X, where X is the number of lands you control. There's quite a few of them on this battlefield.
Yeah.
And the vigilance on this card means that it never really needs to worry too much about whether or not you're using the resource correctly. It just can't be beat in combat suddenly. That's +8/+8 on a 4/4.
Yeah, Ariel picking up a relic once held by Dakon, getting in there.
I mean, it looks pretty fresh right now.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. Dark Bargain here from Owen. He's going to lose a little bit of life, and it looks like we might be seeing a response here from Joe Bernal. Maybe just trying to use that activated ability sooner rather than later. He decides against it. Going to take a look at the top 3 cards. 2 of these are going to go to his hand. 1 of them going to go to the graveyard. It's going to be a forest. He's decided he's got enough land.
And he definitely has plenty of land here. He probably has another play to follow up here, I would imagine.
Certainly that's the hope for Owen, and it's going to be Llanowar Envoy and then just a kick back to Joe Bernal. So Nothing particularly substantial. Removal has been lacking from Owen's deck as of yet, which is why this Slimefoot and this Ariel have really just been running away with this game. They've been uncontested with removal. There's not a whole lot that's really stopping them from enacting Joe's game plan.
Yeah, and Joe doesn't need to cast the spell to win this game right now. He can just sit here and continue attacking basically forever.
Yep. Doing a quick check, make sure that there's not 12 power on the other side of the battlefield. Okay, we're good. Get a little swing in. And Owen's on this weird, it's not directly a clock, but Owen needs to keep putting out creatures at the rate of, at least one a turn, or Joe, by doing nothing on board, is eventually just going to overwhelm with this Ariel in addition to putting out the Slimefoots, putting out the Knights. There's so much accruing on Joe's side of the battlefield. It's hard to imagine a game that takes this over for Owen.
Yeah, and the other thing is that Joe even has additional removal spells in hand. He has the Ancient Animus. So if Owen's able to find a big threat, Joe already has the answer at the ready. If Owen tries to just continue grinding his way to victory, there's no way that's going to work against Ariel and Slimefoot.
Sapling Migration is going to get kicked, though. We're going to get quite a few. That buys some time, gums up the board. It just feels like delaying the inevitable in a lot of ways, though.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see Joe perhaps just starts making tons of Saprolings. He may want to spend at least one more turn making a Knight, but here he could make a pair of Saprolings and use the black ability on Ariel to kill one of Owen's creatures. So that could be a really nice advantage without spending any cards.
And we did see that Soul Salvage follow off Grund the Lonely King and Thallid Omnivore were the takes. He'll have the ability to kick that Grund the Lonely King if he does so decide. Could have a 10-10 that can attack as a 20-20.
Ooh.
It's a pretty big card.
Have you Ansar's Winged it?
Woo! Good thing that Ancient Animus is in hand. Otherwise, that would be just quite a way to end the game. Of course, Owen would need to get a Light Splash suddenly. Llanowar Envoy coming down, Ancient Animus. We're going to take down the Untamed Kavu. Interesting that he's willing to do this too, knowing about the Grund the Lonely King in hand. I think he's just deciding he is not that worried about that side of the game plan. I think he just wants to keep doing what he's doing.
Yeah, things look so good for Joe at this point that, Owen could, run a runner at many powerful cards and still be in a pretty dominant position.
Blackblade Reforged getting done alongside Ariel, alongside Slimefoot, and really several of these Skittering Surveyors. There's still the Lingering Phantom in the graveyard, actually, that he's got access to at any point. I think there's still a Skittering Surveyor in hand for Joe that he's just elected not to cast yet. And it's time to get aggressive. These Vigilance Knights, this Skittering Surveyor, which is a 1-2, so it just beats them in combat anyway. Joe has decided that it's time to really start taking some action here. 3 blockers on one of these Knights. And this is still going to be a pretty substantial hit. Owen's going to be going down a touch.
Yeah, Owen, can't really establish another double block because of that Ariel tap, and then Slimefoot will just make more Saprolings. And none of these blocks look great for him. This is the best he can do.
Trying to set up a triple block on at least one of these Knights, so at least one of the Knights is going to go away with that Ariel. If you put 2 of them on it, like you said, that Ariel can just remove one of them, and then you end up looking very probable for the whole turn. And really, it's hard to imagine that this attack doesn't leave Joe feeling pretty good about his board position. So we're going to lose a Saproling here. Remember that actually, the Saprolings almost have this kind of functional can't be blocked. Sure, it's off the battlefield, but it's almost kind of like the Thorn Elemental in that no matter what happens to it, if it dies, great. Owen's going to take 1, and Joe's going to gain 1.
Yeah, and if Joe just starts making Saprolings and is able to keep that Slimefoot on the battlefield, then Owen's life total is just going to dwindle way too quickly.
And looks like we've got a Dark Bargain available, and it is going to be this Windgrace Acolyte coming down to the battlefield. Joe is going to get another 3 cards in. Another one of these Lingering Phantoms. One Skittering Surveyor could refill his hand pretty happily if he ever needs to get into that territory. Otherwise, it's Windgrace Acolyte.
Yeah, and I mean, Joe, even if Owen were to find a way to deal with this entire board, would still be in a really nice position. He has both copies of Lingering Phantom in his graveyard, and he has this Skittering Surveyor in hand, so he's just completely ready for anything Owen might throw at him.
Yep, and actually the Thallid Omnivore may not be able to do quite enough. Keep in mind that This Blackblade Reforged, it's an equipment. It can go to another creature. No flyers on the board right now. I'd be very surprised if we didn't just see that Blackblade Reforged find its way onto this Winggrace Acolyte and close the game out. That's going to be the case, and it's going to be the Winggrace Acolyte getting in. After all this grinding, it's a flyer with its first swing that's going to close out the game.
It's a big sword for a little bat. I guess it's a cat, right?
It's a cat, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cat that's riding some sort of aerial monstrosity.
A really big bat being ridden by a cat.
Looks like these knights also going to be getting in. They've got vigilance, but I think just for the purposes of actually representing what's happening, getting a little bit of a tap in there. There it is, and there's the handshake from Owen Turtenwald. It is going to be Joe Bernal taking this in 3, beating the 3rd ranked player in the world with an absolutely monstrous looking deck there at the end. So, I mean, that deck, how do you feel about how this 3 Skittering Surveyors, Ariel, Slimefoot, the Stowaway, a lot of powerful cards in this deck, even the Blackblade Reforged, which has a pretty high casting cost in some situations, but, you know, pretty negligible in that situation.
Yeah, so Joe's deck looked great. Joe had everything you want. Joe had card advantage. Joe had good ways to be defensive. Joe had great mana sinks for the late game. And he had ways to make sure that his opponent had no more removal spells by the time he played his good mana sinks.
Well, that was a phenomenal game, and of course we're going to have more Magic coming your way here at the U.S. Nationals in Columbus, Ohio. We'll be right back after this.